Hello everyone, welcome to the webinar today. Today's topic is introducing ransomware containment, a better way to stop ransomware. Today we invite vendors Bullwall, Matthew and Andy to present about the solution and how we can stop the ransomware, which is millions and millions of people having headaches every day. So, and they find any solution that can perfectly stop that, prevent that, but still finding. So maybe today is the time you can find one to help you to let you sleep better every day. So let me pass the present to Nathan, so you guys can take a look, see how it works. Thank you.
Perfect. Can you just confirm that you are seeing my screen now, please?
Yes, I can see your screen.
That is fantastic. Thank you very much, and hello everybody. Thank you for taking the time to come and have a look at the Bullwall ransomware containment solution. My name is Morten Gammelgaard. I am one of the co-founders at Bullwall and also executive vice president in the company. I'm joined on the call by our director of engineering, Andy Walsh, who will be taking you through a live demonstration of 2 or 3 different ransomware attacks coming in from different vectors, so you can see how this solution is able to contain the threat. But before I do that, ransomware attacks are a global threat that's costing a lot of money to organizations, and these attacks are increasing in frequency. So the latest research shows that one organization is being hit every 11 seconds. So to demonstrate that, I will set a timer while I review why these attacks are still happening and what we can do about it. So to understand the problem a little bit better, we can take a look at a few statistics. And in essence, what we see is that in 2022, there was a 132% increase in encryption threats as cyber criminals became almost exclusively focused on either encrypting or stealing company data. We have also seen that out of all of the successful ransomware attacks that are hitting organizations, almost 80% of those are caused by zero-day attacks. And of course, that means that the preventative solutions that we are using in our companies to defend are not effective because they only work with recognized threats and can't really do anything about the zero-day attacks, or at least not very effectively. But probably the most interesting stat is we carry out an assessment for organizations globally. We did 1,500 ransomware penetration tests globally last year, and when we deploy 4 different ransomware variants against prevention-based tools, we see that 99% of those are undetected by the current preventative solutions. So I can all but guarantee that if we were to do a ransomware assessment in your environment, we would also be able to encrypt data without your current security seeing it, because that's just the nature of the game out there today. If we look at the most common entry methods for how ransomware is getting into organizations, it's through phishing emails, vulnerabilities on systems, stolen admin credentials. They use physical accessing, sometimes dropping USB sticks or mobile phone charger cables that contain malware, and when they're plugged into a laptop, then the ransomware attack starts. Zero-day attacks I've already mentioned, and then of course there is one of the most prevalent threats at the moment is hijacking of remote desktop protocol sessions when organizations are logging onto their own servers to do work. So just in the short amount of time it took me to explain that, 12 ransomware attacks has happened around the world, and it just goes to show the threat that we are facing. So why is it that all of these organizations continue to be hacked, even though a lot of them are large organizations and very secure? we work with some of the most secure enterprises throughout the world, and we still see that they have vulnerabilities and they have malware getting through their defenses. Well, probably the biggest reason is that almost all of the security that we have in place today is preventative. It started way back in the days with antivirus, and we introduced intrusion detection and intrusion prevention. We started to do network security, DNS filtering. We introduced email security gateways. Antivirus was sort of reborn into next-gen antivirus and then to EDR. And some of the later things we're doing includes privilege management and zero trust. But all of these preventative technologies, the more of it we introduce, the more the attack cadence from the criminals go up. So we're actually less successful at stopping ransomware today than we were back in 2010 or in 2000. And that is because the issue with preventative security is it is of course good. We need to have it in place. We are not saying anything bad about preventative solutions, but the issue with preventative solutions is that they require you to be 100% effective 100% of the time throughout the entire attack surface that you're trying to protect and against all of the threats that are out there. And in today's world, that is pretty much impossible. If one of these perimeters over here on the right-hand side falls just a little bit below 100%, then there is a chance for the criminals to infect your organization and hit you hard with ransomware encryption. So if we take a look at how most organizations defend themselves, these are the technologies that they use to try and defend. We call it the preventative wall. These are all the preventative tools and tactics that are in use. And I'm sure if you're looking at it and thinking about your company, you've probably deployed most of these technologies. Today, we also see that the top 5 attack vectors are email phishing, brute force through RDP, compromised websites that are hosting malware to do drive-by downloads, removable media and cables that are plugged in that contain ransomware and are difficult to contain, and then drive-by downloads as well. And the issue with that is that the ransomware gets through this preventative wall. This is just a couple of examples with zero-day threats or polymorphic exploits. They utilize social engineering to lift passwords and usernames. Malicious links and email payloads are also leading to malware getting through this wall up here. So what we need to do is we need to think of the layer behind the endpoint, the firewalls and the servers. We need to think about the data center, the data source, and the data that we have in the cloud and how we protect that. So if I had to show that in an animation of how an attack happens, you have a company here with their perimeter protection up at the top, email gateway, corporate firewall, and web gateway, and that sits to filter out quite a lot of the malware. But still, sometimes malware can get through. And then below this layer, we have a layer of endpoint protection on laptops, workstations, and servers. So antivirus or EDR or XDR, whatever the endpoint security vendors are called today. And hopefully, if anything breaches the perimeter, this solution here on the endpoint will pick it up and stop it. And I say hopefully deliberately because it doesn't do it all the time. You will also have mobile phones and tablets and IoT devices that are more difficult to put security agents on, but they can still very much be utilized by the criminals in a ransomware attack. And then below this, then you have a layer which is basically your critical IT infrastructure, so your data center, your data stores, and your cloud data. And this layer up here, these 2 layers up here at the top are very well protected. There's maybe 100 security vendors on the market today that provide solutions up here, and all organizations have this security in place. But what most organizations are not so good at is securing the layer behind. And that is a problem because this layer down here at the bottom is the layer that the criminals are after when they try to encrypt your data. If they encrypt a single laptop, you're not going to pay them a ransom. But if they encrypt this layer down here at the bottom, they cripple every single user in the organization. And the user needs this layer down here. They need to be able to access the data to do the job that they do on a day-to-day basis. So should a ransomware come in from the internet and maybe bypass the firewall, or a user clicks on an email attachment or goes to a website and there's a drive-by download, the malware will seek out an endpoint. It may or may not disable the EDR that's running, but at some point it will hit for this layer down here at the bottom, and it will begin to encrypt anywhere from 10,000 to 50,000 files per minute. It will try and replicate itself out to more machines, and within a very short amount of time, we have access to no machines anymore. Nobody in the organization can do any work anymore. And it is that very outbreak scenario that we deal with this solution. So this solution is an agentless solution. It is a 24/7 automated containment solution that works in your data center, on your critical infrastructure, and in the cloud. And it helps you afterwards with any compliance or anything. But if we look at the right-hand side of my screen, our solution will sit on a single virtual server behind your firewall. And if any of your individual machines get compromised by malware and they start to encrypt, for instance, file servers, database servers, application servers, or the cloud data, Bullwall will react to that encryption, and it will shut down the compromised device very, very quickly. You may lose 10, 20, or 30 files, but that's a very small price to pay compared to having all of the data in your data center or all of the data in the cloud laid out. So if I go back to this animation and show the difference, we protect this layer down here at the bottom, and if I start my little animation again, you will see the malware come through. Infect the same machine as before, but as soon as this machine here, second from the right, touches any data in this layer down here, we isolate and contain that device, and thereby we stop the encryption within milliseconds. So it's very, very fast and very, very effective. So the big difference between Bullwall ransomware containment and the perimeter and endpoint security that you have today, the preventative solutions, is that the preventative solutions look for the virus itself, patterns of virus, or behavior of virus. And if they see something that they have seen before, they do a really, really good job at stopping it. But if they see something for the first time, a new threat that they've never seen before, the efficiency and the efficacy of those tools drop right down, and they are not very good at stopping them anymore. And that's where we come into the picture. Instead of looking for the virus itself, we look simply at whether your data is being encrypted or not. And if it starts to be illegitimately encrypted by the ransomware gangs, then we contain it and stop it very, very quickly. We have 28 different sensors that all work either alone or in combination to build up an alert score. And when that alert score is high enough, we know that illegitimate ransomware has started to encrypt your key data, and then we respond automatically. So it doesn't matter whether it happens on a Monday during lunchtime, Thursday night, or over the weekend when nobody is working. The response is fully automated, and you don't need any interaction from the IT team to stop the ransomware. We also help with the recovery list of the few files that were encrypted before we reacted. So those 20, 30 files can be recovered very quickly. And we also help you with either internal reporting to your leadership team, to your boards, and even worse, if you have had any data encrypted that contain personally identifiable information. Under many compliance regulations, you need to report that as a data breach under GDPR, under CCPA, under PCI credit card regulations. You need to report that as a data breach very, very quickly. So that was a quick explanation on a high level of how we stop ransomware in active ransomware in your environment. Now I'm going to hand over to Andy, and Andy will take you through a live demonstration of the tool.
Thank you, Morten. Just share my screen, just bear with me 1 second. Perfect. Can I just get confirmation you can see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yes, we can
Perfect.
see.
Wonderful. So what I'm going to take you through today is a high-level overview of ransomware, or RC. I'm going to show you a couple of simulations in which ransomware could get into your organization, and more importantly, show you how our solution will deal with that. So as Morten mentioned in the presentation, RC is installed on a very lightweight server. Once that installation takes place, it's just accessed by using a URL. So in my case, it's standard HTTP traffic, but we can also use SSL if required. As part of the prerequisites, we would ask you to create us a number of Active Directory groups. Now, based on the level of access, determines what you can do within the tool. In addition to that, we do harden down by using token-based authentication. So once you've added your credentials, you are presented with our dashboard, and I will go into a little bit more detail on this later on in the demo. But the first thing we need to do is onboard where that critical data resides. So these are your file shares, either on-prem, up in the cloud, your database servers, application servers, and your domain controllers. So as part of the prerequisites, we would ask you to create us a service account, and that service account does not require any elevated permissions. It purely needs read access to the environments that we want to monitor. If we don't have the access, you can see here the tool will indicate that, but it will also email the RC administrator to advise them that this environment is no longer being monitored. So for us to support your database servers, application servers, and domain controllers, we use something called RC Server Monitoring. Basically what this does is it creates a honeypot folder. That creates one at the top and one at the bottom. So when a ransomware comes into an organization, what it will do is start to encrypt the top or the bottom of your folder structure. What we do is then place these honeypots at the top and at the bottom, and then populate this with some generated data. So if you were to be hitting this method, all that would happen is this data would become encrypted. Our detection sensors would kick in and do the necessary isolation. What it does mean is that core business data in between these two folders won't be touched. For DFS, so exactly the same principle, we just require read access to that namespace. And as Morten mentioned, we do interact into the cloud. So whether you're using SharePoint Online or Google Drive, we're able to monitor the data that gets synchronized up into this environment. So once you have onboarded where that critical data resides, we need to look at how we do that detection against ransomware. So on the right-hand side, we have our list of known bad, which consists of extensions, artifacts, and file headers. So part of the subscription to the solution, we have a team in the back end that are regularly looking for these strains of ransomware. And as soon as we come across these, we automatically push these to your dashboard. Because we are that agentless solution, we do not need to send any signature updates down to your local clients. As soon as it hits our dashboard, we are protected. But with RC, we are not solely reliant on this list of known bad. It basically just enables us to detect that known strain of ransomware even quicker. But we need to take into consideration the zero-day exploit of those unknown strains of ransomware. So the way we do that is that we need to allow RC to learn your data over a short period of time. This is done by using our machine learning capabilities. What we are looking for is the known good extensions, but also the file headers associated to those extensions. So if that unknown or zero-day exploit got into your environment, it will do one of two things. So firstly, it will look to encrypt that data by changing that file extension to that unknown extension. What that means is we've not seen that as part of our known bad. We have not seen it as part of our known good. We will detect that as that unknown strain of ransomware due to the speed of the encryption. So the reason we look against the file headers is certain ransomware will come in and that encryption process will not change the file name or the file extension, but it will alter the file header. So again, we're able to detect on that very, very quickly due to the speed of that encryption, but more importantly, we go ahead and put those automatic isolation steps in place. So basically what we're highlighting from this screen is that we know about the known bad. We know about the known good, but more importantly, we cater for the unknown threat as well. So I'm going to jump now onto our dashboard. So what we're seeing here on the left-hand side is our live log, and this is what you would see within your organization. What is key to point out at this stage is that we do not continually scan your network. These are all file-based notifications. So as soon as somebody makes a change to a file, be it modified, created, deleted, or renamed, it's at this point we check that file for that illegitimate activity. Now with RC, we are utilizing that SMB and CIF protocol, which already exists within your Microsoft networks today. So when you introduce RC, you don't actually introduce any overhead. So in the center here, we have our activity live, and this shows at any given time the files that are modified, created, deleted, and renamed, and then just a couple of graphical interfaces on our dashboard. But what we are looking at here is just that good flow of data. At this point, nothing bad is actually happening. So we're going to go ahead and run our first simulation. So what I have here is a Windows 10 VM, which is connected to my domain and connected back to a file share that exists on my server. Now I'm going to fire off something here called a DMA locker. And what this ransomware will do, it will go and encrypt the files. That encryption process will not change the file name or the file extension, but it will alter the file header. So that encryption process is now started. If we jump back to our dashboard, we can see our alert level is now starting to increase. So in a few seconds, that will reach that 100% alert level. But more importantly, my machine has now become isolated and shut down. So if we draw our attention to the dashboard, what we can see is that ransomware has bypassed that first line of defense, starting to encrypt that data. Now, if I go to the file share in which I've just attacked, I can see a number of files have become encrypted, and I can see that due to the date stamp. And if I try and open one of these files, I can no longer view the contents of that because of that encryption process. So without RC in place, what would happen is this ransomware would freely start to encrypt everything on my file share. Now, I've only got a handful of files. Most organizations can have terabytes worth of data. In a very short period of time, that whole file infrastructure could be encrypted. And there's every potential for that ransomware to jump to other file shares within your organization. So drawing our attention back to the dashboard, what we have provided you guys in the IT teams is back that control. So we can see that ransomware has bypassed that first line of defense. We very quickly reached our 100% alert level. We know the breakdown that is based on our detection sensors, and as Morten mentioned, we have 28 sensors that work together to build up to that 100% alert level. More importantly, we have identified patient zero and gone ahead and put those automatic isolation steps in place. So I'm going to take you through how we do that. Now, this really does depend on the types of solutions you are running. So you do have an existing EDR or NAC-based solution. We can utilize what you have already invested in to go ahead and help with those isolation processes. If not, it really doesn't matter because RC will work standalone. And in this case, we need to populate our asset list, which is done in multiple different ways. But what that gives us is the real-time information about who is logged onto that device at that given time. To identify the PC name, the username, the IP address, but also the type of device they're logged into. So that's quite important because built into the system, we have a whole lot of scripts, around 150 in total, that will help us isolate every single type of scenario an individual could be logged in with. Now, we're only using batch files and PowerShell scripts, which are initiated from the server. So there's no new scripting technology. If there's certain aspects that you would like to see, as long as we can script that, we can build that into the tool. So what we're looking at here is very much like a playbook. There is no set amount of limits to the number of steps that we can perform when it comes to isolation. As a couple of examples, what we can do is send a splash screen, which would appear on a user's display as that device is shutting down. We can disable all network connectivities. That's literally dropping that machine off the grid. In that scenario I've just shown you, we actually sent a forced shutdown. So we do need to ensure the RC service account has the appropriate permissions to be able to do that, which is delivered via domain policy. Now, as this being a forced shutdown, if the user was in the middle of doing any work, they would have no ability to save. It literally drops them straight off that device. So in addition to utilizing our built-in capabilities, we do obviously have the ability to integrate into the EDR solutions and our built-in scripts. And finally, we can go ahead and disable my user in Active Directory. So if I go to my AD now, do a very quick refresh, we can see my user John Doe has become disabled. Not only will we disable it on-prem, but we can disable it in the cloud as well. In addition to that, if you would like to see the PC device disabled, we can also do that as well within the scripts. But in addition, what we do is append something to the existing description field. What this basically just provides your engineers is ability to identify very, very quickly that this has been isolated by Bullwall. We'll go ahead and trigger off our incident response plan. So what we have here is open and customizable. So if you want to make changes to this, or you have your own instant response plan, we can build that easily into the tool. But what that gives the RC administrators the easy ability to identify exactly what steps need to take place if an alert were to be generated. So at this point, we've done our response. We need to look at how we do the recovery. So I know during this period of time, there were some good files generated, but more importantly, we can drill down to that individual. So yes, this person will lose a little bit of downtime, but we're talking about one person here with a handful of files rather than that whole file infrastructure, so the business as a whole would still be able to operate. What we can do is highlight these, export that to a CSV. So based on your organization's backup strategy, this individual can be up and running relatively quickly. But more importantly, we do identify exactly where that encryption has taken place, which will help in that restoration process. Now, bear in mind, the ransomware that I showed you was that DMA locker style ransomware, which does not change the file name or the file extension. So if you were to be hitting this method, it will be difficult to identify which files have become encrypted. But with RC in place, what that will provide you is that 100% accurate report. But we need to consider if any of these files contain personal information and you need to report this as a data breach, or if these files don't contain personal information, you might just want to provide a report to the C-level. So by clicking on either of these buttons, what that gives us is our populated report, where some of the information here is free-form text, but we automatically populate when an attack starts, when an attack stops. You would then type in the summary, the location, the server, but more importantly, we identify the file owner and the list of files that have become encrypted. So if you were to be hit by ransomware and these files did contain personal information, what we provide you here is enough for you to be able to report under that data breach. So that was my first demonstration I wanted to take you through. So I hope at this stage you can see how quickly we are able to do that detection. How we can react by integrating into basic email, into an SMS gateway, into a SIEM, into a syslog, but also into a call management solution. How we can respond, that's basically to tailor against your requirements, and how quickly we have to generate that recovery and those reports for you. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and I'm just going to jump to another quick screen. So bear with me 1 second whilst I try and work this out. Sharing. Can you see, what screen can you see, Morten, if you don't mind?
I'm still seeing the same screen, Andy.
Okay, let me stop sharing and let me just jump to the other one. 1 second. Perfect. And if I could just get confirmation you guys can see me okay.
We see you now live, all
Perfect.
good.
Perfect. So let me just briefly explain what we're looking at here in the background. So again, I have my RC running. We have 2 laptops here in front of me. So the first one here is going to be running a cloud simulation. So in my case, this is SharePoint Online. But what I'm going to take you through is exactly the same principle if this were to be Google Drive. The second one here is running one of those new breed EDR solutions. So in my case, it's Sentinel-1. Now, we're not here to say anything bad about this product. What we're basically going to show you is how we do that interaction into these EDR type solutions. So let's go ahead and jump onto my SharePoint. Now, what I'm going to do here is run a very old ransomware. So this is the .WannaCry, which hit our NHS here in the UK some years back. So basically all I'm highlighting at this stage is that we do not care if that ransomware was released today, in the future, or in the past. What we are looking for is the telltale signs of that illegitimate activity. So I'm going to go ahead and hit attack. Now what this is doing is encrypting that local OneDrive store. Now with that built-in synchronization process, what is happening is these files are going to be uploaded into the cloud with that known bad extension. So how do we do that? So basically with RC, we need to allow it to be trusted within this cloud environment. From a SharePoint perspective, we do that by creating an app registration. So that app registration will provide us with a unique client ID and client secret, which then allows RC to be trusted within this environment, so we can then monitor everything that sits underneath this SharePoint umbrella. And it's pretty much the same when it comes to Google Drive. We just need to create a project, which then gives us the permissions to monitor that data. So as you can see from my dashboard, again, we have reached that 100% alert level. We know the type of breakdown that is based on our detection sensors. And as you can see, we have detected on multiple different sensors in this instance. More importantly, we have identified the individual. Now, in the case of this machine, as you can see, it's not shutting down. And the reason that is this is connected directly to my internet rather than to my domain. So in that case, we can't see the device to use our shutdown capabilities, but if this was running an EDR solution, obviously that is a cloud-based solution, we would still go ahead and do the isolation. But because we can still identify that individual, what we have put in place is the steps to block that synchronization and revoke that user's token. So that basically prevents any further synchronization up into the cloud. So it doesn't matter how that user's accessing that data, be it through the synchronization or directly into the cloud, and it doesn't matter the type of device they're accessing that data from, because we can still see that individual, we can put the steps in place to block that synchronization. So what we're looking at here on our dashboard, what we can provide is that same view onto a mobile phone. So what that basically provides you is that mobile SOC, shall we say. So at any point in the day, you'll be able to identify that something illegitimate has taken place. More importantly, that RC has done that detection and put the necessary isolation steps in place. So I'm just going to stop share my dashboard or reset my dashboard. We're going to just quickly jump onto our final one here. Now, as an organization, you may prevent the use of USB storage devices, but it doesn't prevent the use of a standard looking iPhone charging cable. Now, when I plug this into my device, because this part here has actually come preloaded with ransomware. So these cables are widely available. They're used by pen testers, but also by cyber criminals. So one of your end users could have purchased this, plug that into the side of their device to charge their mobile phone as they are working. So we jump to our Sentinel-1 screen. What will happen in a second is that run box will appear, which is then triggering off that ransomware. So if we go back to our dashboard, we can see we have reached that 100% alert level. I do apologize. I'm having the curse of the demos today, but I really do apologize. We would have reached that 100% alert level. We would have isolated that device by using the built-in Sentinel-1 capabilities. So because we can identify the individual, what will happen is that call will be made up into Sentinel-1 or any of these EDR solutions, and it will go ahead and quarantine that device using those built-in security policies. So to summarize before I hand back to Morten, it really, as you can see from an RC perspective, we are installed on a very, very lightweight server. More importantly, on all these devices that I've shown you, we don't require an agent, so it is quick and it's easy to deploy. So we don't care how that ransomware gets into your organization. What we are there for is to contain it very, very quickly, but more importantly, stop that costly downtime. I'd like to thank you very much. I will now hand back to Morten. Thank you.
Can you just give me presenters' rights again? Thank you. Perfect. All right, so we've shown you the presentation, high-level overview. We've shown you the demo of the tool and how we're able to stop ransomware attacks very, very quickly. It is possible for you guys to either request a demo by using the QR code or contacting version 2 for more information. We can also set up a ransomware assessment for companies that are interested in that. But at this point, I would like to thank all of you for your time and to hear if there is any questions from the audience that we can help you answer around the solution today.
Maybe I help them to answer very typical questions. Is that easy to deploy? Is it required agent or how it works when during your deployment?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, it does not require an agent on any of the machines. We just need to install on one virtual server. And when it comes to the deployment as well, because we just deploy to one server and configure that and point it afterwards towards the critical IT infrastructure and the file shares and the cloud data, the rollout process is pretty simple. We will install the server and we will run in monitoring mode for a couple of weeks. We enable a machine learning phase that picks up all the good traffic in your environment. And typically, depending on the size of the organization and how much time they can spend with us, it's anywhere from 2 weeks to maybe 7 or 8 weeks. So if we had one meeting a week with you, it would probably take 8-9 weeks. And if we were doing 2 or 3 meetings a week, it could be a little as 2 weeks before it is fully deployed in your organization, and you have this extra layer in place to stop the actual encryption that the other tools don't do anything about when they have missed the thread. So good question.
And one also very common scenario that's maybe majority of the user, they have joined the AD and the machine in the Active Directory, but there are more worries on the user who is work from home or some mobile users. So how can we take care and help on those user and computers?
Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't matter to the solution whether the user is in the office or is working from home or accessing from a hotel Wi-Fi. If they connect to either cloud data or via VPN into the data center on premise in one of the main offices, we will monitor. And it's if any data gets touched in the cloud or in the data center, we can pick up on it. We can still revoke the credentials that user has, so that user can do no more encryption damage. So it doesn't really matter to our solution where the user is and how they're connecting in.
Great. Okay, see if any others questions. I think pretty clear from you guys. Maybe we wait for a few seconds. If there's no more question or you guys still thinking about it, just contact ourselves or technical.
I think one of the very common questions that we get asked, I think I can just cover it. So when ransomware attacks happen, the main target for the criminals, of course, is to encrypt your data so they can hold you hostage. But we also often get asked about ransomware exfiltration and whether we deal with that. And there is an add-on to the tool called server intrusion protection that helps with that problem. First of all, when the criminals exfiltrate data, they typically encrypt it first, so it doesn't get discovered by data leakage solutions or anything like that. Second of all, we can go in at an earlier stage with the server intrusion protection. In fact, let me just quickly show here. So what we've shown you today is the ransomware containment solution, but we have something called server intrusion detection or server intrusion protection that helps with stopping this. So the solution you've seen today sits at 7 in the attack chain from the criminals. The other two solutions down here looks at the delivery point, the exploitation phase, and the installation that the criminals are doing, and when they take command and control. So when we implement MFA effectively in an environment with a customer, we can go in and stop them from doing an exploit and using tools like Mimikatz to lift credentials. When they do that, they can gain access to domain controllers, application servers, database servers, and VMs. And a lot of companies have MFA enabled, but not internally. When they work on servers behind the firewall and they move from server 1 to server 2 to server 3, then MFA is not required. It's only required on login, and that's how they hijack these servers and install malware on them. But with our installation, we request a username and password. Whoever is requesting that gets access to the server. And then after they're onto the server, then we will challenge with MFA, because then we can trap the criminal. We know that they're on the network if they can't provide the token, and we can then take action on it afterwards. So you can either do a normal token delivery, or you can do a selected token from a grid. So you have a fixed token that you find every time. That allows you to log on very quickly. If you log on to 20 or 30 servers in a day, it also prevents the use of keyloggers, so the criminals can't read the tokens. And you can also choose a fixed login. So I could say I want column 9 out here and row 6. So this is the one that I click on every time, and it's super quick to log on. But if the criminal within a set time limit is not able to provide an MFA token, or he provides the wrong one, then we can use the technology that we have in ransom care here in RC, so we can send an alert to the IT team that we have an indication of compromise. We can block the stolen admin account, we can block the compromised user account, and we can isolate and contain this device so IT can fix it, maybe re-image it and put new usernames and credentials on, and we effectively kick the criminal off the network before they're able to encrypt any data and before they're able to exfiltrate any data. So we also deal with that part.
Wow, that's a cool solution.
Thank you.
Okay, let me see if any other questions. Okay, we still have time. So I want to know more about a little bit about the server intrusion prevention. So there's a solution installed on the server to make the protection, right?
That is correct.
Okay, got it. Okay, see if any others attendees got question for us. Can just wait for a few more seconds.
I think we've made good time here. We've been able in a short amount of time to hopefully explain to you how this solution is very different to the other solutions on the market, and how it sits in a completely different area and looks at the actual encryption process taking place and stopping ransomware at an early stage in the attack chain. So hopefully you've all found it useful, and if there is no further questions, then we can give everybody a little bit of time back in their day.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I think so. Again, if you guys got any question after the section, just contact us. And if you guys want to take a test or so some proof of concept, we do have some POC, so we can help you to run through our solution and run a ransomware simulation with your existing protection and see if it really can penetrate and how your existing solution works, and see then we can prove you guys that we still have very big areas that we can help you to protect you guys from the ransomware. Don't forget that it's just a few minutes, you got many files. Anyway, so thank you for today. Thank you all of you guys joining today's section. Take care. Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye bye everyone.